going to talk about evolution of engineering organizations. I'm Ezhil Suresh from Capgemini Public Sector Engineering. There's no such thing as engineering architecture these days. It's a blend of multiple skills. So I started off my engineering life in 1997. When I started, and for those who started in the 80s and 90s in any engineering development, you would get a bunch of files to say, write code like this. This is the standard you need to adhere to, etc., etc., etc. And then we had the code quality tools being made available, made life a lot easier, brought some standardization, governance. We can still bypass them. With the AI enablement for engineers, things have moved on quite a bit. So the AI provides a lot of capabilities. We heard from Valerie.ai how the memory still is being developed, things like the episodic memory limitations. And from an ecosystem level, how different players needs to come along to enable that. So there's a lot of things happening in the AI space from an AI enablement perspective, especially for those that are developing software as the end consumers of AI, let's put it that way. We are still evolving, we are adapting to how engineering has been done and how it could be done. We need to let the AI know, do it this way, do it that way. So we heard about how a junior engineer would behave with no experience coming in. What are the things we need to enrich to that junior engineer to come up? AI is very similar, but it has come leaps and bounds in the last few months. Working in highly regulated industries, how many of you here are in public sector, banking, finance, insurance, etc.? Yeah, there's quite a few. So you know the pain. So anyone working in the regulated industries, there's quite a lot of governance that needs to go in for building, designing systems, not just software. So this is one stack of cross-functional engineering. So I lead the cross-functional platform engineering. So how we build everything with security and data at the heart of the foundations. So everything we build needs to adhere to the security principles, data principles, and whatnot, and to the standards most of the time. AI is being used pretty much all through that stack. So right from how we build our security controls, to our data controls, to how we provision our infrastructure, cloud infrastructure, data platform infrastructure, and on top of that, the agentic AI infrastructure as well. So AI is being used across all the layers and is also an enabler for engineers. How do we use AI to build the agentic AI systems? So this is the operational design that we are using for one of our clients. Now let's go a little bit more deeper, especially from a build perspective. So the personas that I'm going to provide here are, let's say, application developers and data engineers. I'll pause there for a minute for you to observe what is there, whoever is there in the engineering background, and then we'll go in. Again, this is for regulated industries, highly regulated industries. What does a governance model looks like, and how AI-enabled engineers can benefit from AI. At the same time, how do we guide AI systems to do the good engineering? Okay. So we looked at on the memory footprint. How do we go from an individual level to team level to an organization level? You brought it up really, really well. Having the individual knowledge is one thing, but institutionalizing that knowledge is where the 10x, 100x productivity would come in my opinion. Are we there yet? we are evolving, let's say, but when we get from that individual to team to organizational level, then you get that productivity. So most of our controls, we want to put it at the organizational level in highly regulated development. So things like I want to enforce signed commits. So any of the code commits we do needs to have associated signing with it, and it needs to have an associated size with it as well. We want to protect our branches, so anything that we build is software driven. So software driven networking, software driven architecture. So everything is software driven these days. So how do we bring our AI agents to adhere to the standards that this particular industry or an organization expects? So that's what this is about. And then we go into the various layers from the organizational level down to the team repository level and the standards that we want to do. We're also, especially when we deal with classified information. So this is in public sector. So there are different classifications, data classifications. So it goes about what repo can hold what type of data, or what databases can hold a different type of data classification. For us, it is very important to look at those classifications as well when we build our AI agents, and also the AI enablement to happen across those layers. For instance, something that would be considered as, I don't know, I'm just giving an example, as classification as sensitive means it's even more regulated, even more scrutinized than the other data or the code that builds the data. So which means we need to get our AI agents to adapt to that data classification, or the ones that are going to deal with that data classification. So it's not a one size fits all. So where we have been through this journey is multiple teams building their own repos, code bases, not standardized. How many of you have dreaded moving into an organization or team trying to learn how they have put together something compared to your previous place? Right. We would rather write everything from scratch. So, and then the platforms came along, gave a lot of standardization. Say, you don't need to worry about this. We will have the code quality. We have the quality gates. We have got this. But now in the autonomous engineering, AI is going to do a lot of the work. If we started off with the journey of typing what was there in written on a paper, then we moved on to the coding tools. Now we have moved on to the autonomous engineering, where the AI agents will build things for us. We still need to guide them. We still need to put our constraints, our guardrails, our guidance, everything needs to go in. How do we provide that when the memory is limited? And of course, in the last few months, the memory side of things have come quite a lot. Valerie.ai is working on such a tool which would be a boon for many of us. How do we have that knowledge? How do we retain that memory over subsequent sessions without giving it a lot of context? So going on to this, the different tiers and how the memory is going to help us when it comes along. But until then, we are providing things like skills, we are providing things like instructions, and we need to be very careful with how much amount of context we are giving and how we are layering that context. In my opinion, the intent and context and the order in which you are providing that is very important, especially when you're dealing with data, when you're trying to derive insights from the data, or you're trying to get intelligence analysts out of whatever we are providing. So the context and the order in which we provide are very important. So I'll briefly go into a code snippet and why we need to look at the coding agent and what sort of instructions we need to provide to get the governance in. It's all about institutionalizing development, institutionalizing the AI enablement for engineering. So for single people or startup scale-ups, it would work. Some of my teams that I manage are 250, 260 for the client. So which means cross-functional engineering across a wide variety of engineering discipline becomes a challenge. So, and all of this translates into costs, cost to develop, cost to maintain. Okay, so I'm breaking this down into multiple skills. So this is an example of what we are trying to do with GitHub. So GitHub is our one of our chosen tools. The key here is how do you layer your structure? This is evolving. So whatever you see here, in 3 months' time, if you think now this is out of date, there is a newer way of doing stuff. But this is more about what we are doing currently. So to bring the governance in at the organizational level, we are putting controls and we are building the controls with the help of AI itself. We are providing skills file for things like GitHub controls. How do we enforce certain controls at the GitHub organizational level? How do we do the branch protection? And all of these are enforced for AA agents to adhere to as well. So we build the AA agents and they follow with these skills as well. It's also important to understand the shortcomings of the current capabilities of the coding agents. We heard how when LLMs are being used, they have a certain amount of data that they were trained on. And then unless you go and fine tune it with additional information, you don't have that context. So for example, Go 2.6, unless you specify it, it would still be working with some version that it was trained on. So it's exactly what we are trying to address with the skills file. We pointed to the reference architectures, we pointed to the reference frameworks to say, go and have a look into this place. This is what I want you to look in when you're coding on the data engineering side or when you're doing on the platform engineering side. So we provide the guidance through the skills. One example is, how many of you here do signed commits or enforce signed commits? Right? Okay. Claude and Copilot, just to name, they currently do not natively support signed commits in agentic mode. So which means if you try to say, agent, go and do this, go and do a signed commit, no, it hasn't got a native capability, which means it doesn't help us complete that flow automatically. So there is still some development that needs to happen for us to go into a full agentic mode, especially in regulated environments. So this is an example where we created skill MD file. We created a matching Python script to make sure that all of the agentic code commits will be able to do the signed commits. And we enforce the governance through pre-commit hooks, which means the pre-commit hooks checks whatever has been submitted matches, so we do that. There is more verbose skill which we have added, so the AI agent can consume this as it builds out the system. So we specify pretty much everything what the agent needs to adhere to for us to follow certain governance. So that brings to the end. For governed delivery, so it's not just assured delivery, it's fully governed delivery. So what we mean by that is when we are using AI, it adheres to the governance standards that we expect in highly regulated industries. That's following some of these frameworks, like ISO 27001 or NIST or NCSEs. And obviously, it won't be practical for us to follow the entirety of the framework. So what we do is we select the ones that we think is best for the organization. It's about cost, quality, and time. And then we apply those through the skills, through the instructions, depending on whether we use Claude or we use Copilot. That brings us to the end. Thank you.